The Iraqi desert wind howled outside forward operating base Hammer, clawing at the tin walls of a cramped intelligence hub where a lone soldier sat, bathed in the cold glow of a classified terminal. It was February 3rd, 2010, just past midnight, and Private First Class Bradley Manning, a 22-year-old Army intelligence analyst, stared at the screen, fingers trembling above the keyboard, heart pounding with a decision that would shake the world. Over the next 4 months, Manning leaked over 700,000 classified documents to WikiLeaks, tearing the veil off U.S. military and diplomatic operations. Videos of airstrikes, war logs, and diplomatic cables exposed civilian bloodshed, government cover-ups, and the raw, unfiltered truth of America's wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Arrested in a dramatic raid in May 2010, Manning endured a grueling trial, was convicted in 2013 on espionage charges, and sentenced to 35 years in a military prison. In 2017, her sentence was commuted, but her story remains a global lightning rod. A whistleblower to some, a traitor to others. This is the saga of Chelsea Manning, a journey of conscience, identity, and the staggering cost of exposing secrets in a world built on shadows. Welcome, my incredible viewers, to another heart-pounding dive into the crucible of true crime, whistleblowers, and global scandals. A massive shout-out to every subscriber, supporter, and storyteller who keeps this channel ablaze. Your passion fuels these monumental tales. If this story grips you, smash that like button, drop your wildest thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to uncover more shocking exposés that peel back the curtain of power. Let's unravel the odyssey of Chelsea Manning, the soldier who dared to challenge the mightiest machine on Earth. Born Bradley Edward Manning on December 17, 1987 in Crescent, Oklahoma, Chelsea grew up in a dusty speck of a town where the sky was wide and dreams were tethered to the ground. Crescent, population 1,500, was a world of grain silos, pickup trucks, and Friday night football, where conformity was king and difference was a quiet crime. Her father, Brian Manning, was a former Navy intelligence analyst, a man of iron will whose clipped commands shaped a household of order. Her mother, Susan, a Welsh immigrant, was a soft-spoken woman whose warmth was eroded by alcoholism, her evenings lost to bottles hidden in kitchen drawers. Bradley was a paradox, small, barely 5 feet 2 inches, with a slight frame and a mind that burned brighter than Crescent's endless plains. By age 10, he was coding websites, his bedroom a chaotic shrine of second-hand PCs, tangled cables, and Linux manuals. At Crescent High, he was a ghost in the hallways, his quiet voice and effeminate mannerisms making him a target. "Freak," kids hissed, their laughter chasing him to the computer lab where he'd lose himself in code, building virtual worlds where he could be free. He was fiercely intelligent, challenging teachers on everything from Iraq's invasion to the Ten Commandments, his atheism a scandal in Oklahoma's Bible Belt. "I don't belong here," he'd mutter, eyes glued to a screen, already searching for a place to call home. The Manning household was a silent war zone. Brian, a disciplinarian, pushed Bradley toward masculinity. Baseball games, hunting trips, but the boy recoiled, preferring books, music, and the hum of his computer. Susan's drinking cast a long shadow. By 12, Bradley was cooking dinners, playing parent to his older sister Casey, while their mother dozed on the couch. When his parents divorced in 2001, the fracture was cataclysmic. At 13, Bradley followed Susan to Haverfordwest, Wales, a grey coastal town of damp stone and relentless drizzle, hoping for a fresh start. But Wales was no refuge. At Sir Thomas Picton School, his American accent and androgynous style drew a new breed of bullies. "Yank poof," they'd sneer, shoving him in stairwells or stealing his books. He found sanctuary in the computer lab, hacking school servers to tweak grades, not for profit, but to outsmart a system that seemed stacked against him. By 15, he confided in a friend, "I think I'm gay," a secret he guarded tightly in a town where difference was a sin. At 16, he began questioning his gender, stealing moments in Susan's dresses, heart racing as he glimpsed his true self in a cracked mirror. "I'm not who they see," he wrote in a journal, words buried under textbooks, a cry from a soul caught between worlds. Wales forged his resilience, but deepened his isolation. A teenager adrift in a life that didn't fit. In 2005, Bradley returned to Oklahoma, 18 and rootless. He was openly gay now, but gender dysphoria, a term he'd yet to learn, gnawed at him like a shadow. Money was scarce. He drifted through jobs, Starbucks barista, Abercrombie clerk, sometimes sleeping in his battered Pontiac when rent ran dry. His relationship with Brian imploded after Bradley challenged "Don't ask, don't tell," the military's ban on openly gay service members. "You're throwing your life away," Brian barked, slamming the door as Bradley stormed out. Desperate for purpose, he enlisted in the Army in October 2007, hoping its structure would silence his doubts. At 20, he was a private at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, training as an intelligence analyst. His knack for data, sifting signals, mapping threats, earned nods from instructors, but his small stature and blunt opinions drew mockery. "Manning's brain is bigger than his biceps," a drill sergeant sneered, his words stinging. Stationed at Fort Drum, New York in 2008, Bradley excelled at parsing intelligence but clashed with superiors, once reprimanded for questioning Iraq war tactics in a heated briefing. His gender dysphoria festered. He'd wear women's underwear beneath his fatigues, a private rebellion against the Army's rigid mold, his heart pounding at the risk of discovery. October 2009 brought Manning to Forward Operating Base Hammer, 40 miles east of Baghdad. Iraq was a cauldron of chaos, sectarian clashes, roadside bombs, and a U.S. occupation fraying under its own weight. As an all-source intelligence analyst, Manning worked 14-hour shifts in a secure hub, surrounded by servers and screens linked to SIPRNet, a classified network packed with military reports, videos, and diplomatic cables. His job was critical: analyze data, spot threats, protect troops from ambushes or suicide attacks. But the files told a darker story. Reports cataloged civilian deaths, entire families erased in drone strikes, labeled collateral damage in cold bureaucratic prose. Iraqi detainees faced torture in secret prisons, with U.S. forces turning a blind eye. Corruption choked Baghdad's government, fueled by American aid siphoned into offshore accounts. One file, a video titled Apache July 12, 2007, stopped Manning in her tracks. It showed a 2007 Baghdad airstrike, an Apache helicopter gunning down 12 people, including 2 Reuters journalists, Saeed Shma and Namir Noor Eldin. The pilots' voices crackled with glee. "Look at those dead bastards," as they fired again, wounding children in a van that arrived to help. Manning watched, frozen, the screen's glow searing the images into her mind. "This isn't war, it's murder," she scrawled in a notebook, hiding it under her bunk, her hands shaking with rage and guilt. Manning's world was crumbling. Her gender dysphoria, still undiagnosed, was a constant ache, a dissonance between body and soul. In stolen moments, she'd wear a women's t-shirt in her barracks, heart pounding at the risk of a surprise inspection. The Army's hyper-masculine culture crushed her. Colleagues mocked her as soft or girly, one sergeant spitting, "Grow a pair, Manning." She confided online, typing late at night in encrypted chats, "I'm living a lie and it's killing me." Her moral compass, forged in Crescent's debates and Wales' solitude, rebelled against the war's hidden toll. "The public deserves to know what we're doing," she told herself, staring at CyberNet's endless data, each file a brick in a wall of secrets. The idea of leaking took shape during a January 2010 leave in Rockville, Maryland. She contacted the Washington Post, then the New York Times, hinting at explosive documents that could change everything. Both dismissed her. An anonymous private was too risky, too unverified. Scouring the dark web, she found WikiLeaks, a platform led by Julian Assange, a silver-haired provocateur vowing to expose power's underbelly. "This is my chance," Manning whispered, her resolve hardening like desert stone under Iraq's relentless sun. On February 3, 2010, Manning crossed the Rubicon. In Hammer's intelligence hub, during a quiet graveyard shift, she inserted a rewritable CD labeled Lady Gaga, copying 91,000 Afghanistan war logs. She worked in frantic bursts, burning files between routine tasks, her eyes darting to the hub's door as guards patrolled nearby. Using Tor, a dark web browser, she uploaded the logs to WikiLeaks' encrypted Dropbox, the desert night her only witness. Over the next 4 months, she leaked 400,000 Iraq war logs, 250,000 State Department cables, and the Collateral Murder video. Each upload was a high-wire act. CyberNet's security was porous, but a single flag could unravel her. She'd chug Red Bull, sweat beading on her brow, as files transferred, the progress bar a ticking bomb. "I'm risking my life for this," she typed to a friend in an encrypted chat, her words a mantra against fear. By April, she'd sent WikiLeaks enough data to rewrite the narrative of America's wars. Her cramped barracks caught a nerve center for one of history's largest leaks, each keystroke a step toward destiny or doom. The leaks detonated like a global shockwave. On April 5, 2010, WikiLeaks released Collateral Murder, the Apache video, igniting a firestorm that burned through newsrooms and social media. The grainy footage, civilians gunned down, children wounded, pilots laughing, amassed millions of views, shared by activists, tweeted by celebrities like Michael Moore, and debated on CNN's primetime slots. In July, the Afghanistan war logs, published with The Guardian, Der Spiegel, and The New York Times, exposed unreported civilian deaths, U.S. drone strike failures, and Pakistan's covert support for the Taliban, a revelation that strained U.S.-Pakistan ties. October's Iraq war logs detailed 66,000 civilian casualties. Families, shopkeepers, children erased from official counts, alongside U.S. complicity in detainee torture at Iraqi prisons. November's Cablegate, 250,000 diplomatic cables, was a geopolitical earthquake, revealing U.S. spying on UN officials, Saudi Arabia's push for military action against Iran, and candid takes on world leaders. Germany's Angela Merkel was risk-averse and uninspired. Russia's Vladimir Putin, an alpha dog with a short fuse. The fallout was cataclysmic. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, called it an attack on the international community's trust. The Pentagon feared compromised missions, locking down CyberNet, auditing networks, and recalling operatives. Manning, still at Hammer, watched the chaos unfold on a mess hall TV, her face a mask as colleagues raged about the traitor. Pride warred with dread. She'd ignited a reckoning, but the cost was closing in like a sandstorm. Her downfall was a betrayal of trust. In May 2010, Manning confided in Adrian Lamo, a hacker she met on IRC chats, admitting her role in the leaks. "I couldn't keep this inside anymore," she typed, seeking a kindred spirit in the digital void. Lamo, torn between empathy and patriotism, contacted the FBI, forwarding their chats to agents in D.C. On May 27, 2010, military police stormed Manning's barracks, seizing her laptop, CDs, and a journal scrawled with coded notes. Handcuffed under Iraq's blistering sun, she stayed silent, her eyes fixed on the horizon, a soldier facing her own war. Flown to Camp Arifjan, Kuwait, she endured solitary confinement in a windowless 6x8 cell, the darkness amplifying her fear. "Stay strong," she whispered to herself, clinging to her conviction like a lifeline. In July, she was transferred to Quantico, Virginia, where conditions were punishing. 23-hour isolation, forced nudity during inspections, no bedding or personal items. Guards taunted her, one snarling, "You're no soldier, Manning." Charged with 22 counts, including violating the Espionage Act and aiding the enemy, she faced life in prison or the death penalty, her fate a coin toss in the hands of military justice. The 2013 trial at Fort Meade, Maryland, was a global media circus, drawing reporters from London to Tokyo, activists with Free Bradley signs, and military brass in crisp uniforms. Manning, now 25, stood frail but resolute in her dress uniform, her buzz cut a stark contrast to the woman she knew herself to be. She pleaded guilty to 10 charges, mishandling classified data, computer fraud, but fought aiding the enemy, a count that could have meant life without parole. Her defense, led by civilian attorney David Coombs, painted her as a troubled idealist, driven by conscience, not malice. She saw injustice and acted to expose it, Coombs argued, showing emails where Manning expressed horror at civilian deaths and detainee abuse. Prosecutors, led by Major Ashton Fain, branded her reckless opportunist, endangering lives for attention or fame. The Collateral Murder video played in court, its gunfire silencing the room as spectators shifted uncomfortably, some wiping tears. Manning's testimony was raw, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I believed the public deserved to know the truth about what we were doing in their name." On August 21, 2013, Judge Denise Lind delivered a 35-year sentence, one of the harshest ever for a leaker, citing the need for general deterrence to protect national security. The courtroom was still, Manning's face unreadable as she was led away in cuffs, her future a concrete cell. The next day, Manning reshaped her narrative with a single, seismic act. In a statement read on NBC's Today Show, she announced her transition. "I am Chelsea Manning. I am female. Given the way I feel, I've felt since childhood, I want to start hormone therapy." The declaration stunned the world, reframing her story as one of identity as much as whistleblowing. Sent to Fort Leavenworth, a male military prison in Kansas, Chelsea faced a new battlefield. Denied hormone therapy until 2015, she endured hostility from guards and inmates. "You don't belong here, freak," a prisoner spat, echoing the taunts of her childhood in Crescent, Wales. Her gender dysphoria, now diagnosed, was a daily torment. She'd stare at her reflection in a polished steel sink, seeing a stranger in a man's uniform, her identity trapped behind bars. Depression spiraled. She attempted suicide in July and October 2016, each attempt a cry against a system that seemed designed to erase her. Guards punished her with solitary confinement, stripping her dignity further, locking her in a 6x6 cell with no light. "I just want to be me," she wrote in a smuggled letter, her words a plea to a world that seemed to have forgotten her. Supporters rallied, turning Chelsea into a global cause. Amnesty International demanded her release, calling her detention cruel, inhuman, and degrading. Edward Snowden, from exile in Moscow, tweeted, "Manning showed us the cost of truth, and we owe her." Celebrities, Lady Gaga, Glenn Greenwald, Noam Chomsky, even actress Laverne Cox, amplified her story, framing her as a whistleblower and trans pioneer. Crowdfunding campaigns raised thousands for her legal fees, while trans activists hailed her as a symbol of resilience. Critics, including Pentagon officials, Senator John McCain, and incoming President Donald Trump, were unrelenting, claiming her leaks aided terrorists and endangered troops. The truth was murkier. No direct deaths were conclusively tied to the leaks, but the Pentagon spent $6 million mitigating damage, patching networks, recalling diplomats, retraining analysts, and developing new encryption protocols. Allies like France, Germany, and Saudi Arabia fumed over exposed secrets, with one Saudi diplomat reportedly saying, "Trust is shattered, and it won't be rebuilt soon." Chelsea, in her cell, read smuggled copies of Vogue and trans memoirs like Janet Mock's Redefining Realness, clinging to hope amid the concrete and steel, her mind a battlefield of memory and survival. The turning point came in January 2017. President Barack Obama, in his final days, commuted Chelsea's sentence, citing her 7 years served, her public remorse, and Quantico's inhumane conditions, which had drawn UN scrutiny. The decision sparked a firestorm. Critics, including Trump, who tweeted, "Ungrateful traitor," argued it emboldened leakers and weakened national security. Supporters, from the ACLU to Assange, who called it a victory for truth, cheered it as justice for a whistleblower who'd suffered enough. On May 17, 2017, Chelsea walked free, stepping into a Brooklyn spring, her slight frame dwarfed by a crowd waving rainbow flags and signs reading, "Truth wins." "I'm still figuring out who I am," she told reporters, her voice soft but resolute, her short hair catching the sunlight. She moved to a modest apartment in Williamsburg, began hormone therapy, and embraced her identity as a trans woman, her face finally aligning with the soul she'd always known. Her 2022 memoir, ReadMe.txt, laid bare her leaks, transition, and PTSD, earning praise for its raw honesty and sharp prose. She spoke at tech conferences, DEF CON, SXSW, Chaos Communication Congress, advocating for privacy, government transparency, and trans rights. Her presence commanding rooms of coders, hackers, and activists, her slight frame belying the weight of her story. The legacy of Manning's leaks is a tapestry of triumph, tragedy, and transformation. The Collateral Murder video shifted public perception of the Iraq War, fueling anti-war protests and policy debates that led to stricter drone strike protocols. The Afghanistan and Iraq logs exposed systemic flaws: over-reliance on drones, underreporting of civilian deaths, complicity in torture, forcing Pentagon reforms, including mandatory reporting of civilian casualties. Cablegate had global ripples. Arab Spring protesters in Tunisia and Egypt cited the cable's revelations of corruption, sparking uprisings that toppled regimes in 2011. The leaks emboldened Edward Snowden, whose 2013 NSA disclosures built on Manning's blueprint, cementing a new era of whistleblowing that challenged government surveillance worldwide. But the cost was immense. The military overhauled SeeperNet, encrypting data, tightening access and screening analysts with psychological tests to weed out risks like Manning. WikiLeaks, tainted by Assange's legal battles and accusations of Russian ties, lost credibility, its once radical mission muddied by controversy. The Pentagon's $6 million cleanup couldn't undo the diplomatic damage. Strained ties with allies, exposed agents recalled. Trust eroded across capitals from Paris to Riyadh. Chelsea, now 37, lives with the scars, PTSD, relentless public scrutiny, and a barred military career that once promised purpose. Chelsea Manning's story defies simple labels. Was she a courageous whistleblower, exposing the human cost of war and the lies of power? Or a reckless leaker, unleashing chaos for ideals that endangered lives and alliances? Her journey, from Crescent's dusty streets to Iraq's killing fields, from a prison cell's despair to Brooklyn's vibrant chaos, is a mirror to a world wrestling with truth, power, and identity. Her leaks, like the desert wind that framed her fateful decision, cast long shadows, reshaping how we see war, governance, and the right to know. As governments hoard secrets and whistleblowers risk all, her saga poses a haunting question. What's the price of truth? Could another Manning be out there, one click away from changing everything, their finger hovering over a keyboard in some forgotten corner of the world? Thank you for joining this monumental journey into the heart of truth, sacrifice, and defiance. Your support keeps these stories alive. If this saga shook you, share it with friends, hit that like button, and subscribe for more true crime and whistleblower epics. Let's keep the conversation blazing. Is Chelsea Manning a hero, a traitor, or something in between? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next story of secrets and rebellion.